He was the sharpest mind at Takshashila and the least impressed by power. Students called him Chanakya. Kings were about to learn why that was a problem. Chanakya traveled to Pataliputra, capital of the mighty Nanda Empire, seeking royal support for a famine relief effort. King Dhanananda mocked his plain appearance and had him thrown out of the court by force. Standing in the dust outside the gates, Chanakya untied the knot of hair at his crown and swore an oath. He would not tie it again until the Nanda dynasty was destroyed. Fleeing Pataliputra, Chanakya passed through a village where children were playing a game of kingdoms. A boy named Chandragupta sat on a mock throne, calmly assigning rules and punishments to the other children with the authority of someone born to rule. Chanakya recognized in him something rare and took him on as a student. For years at Takshashila, Chanakya shaped the boy into a weapon. He taught him warfare, disguise, diplomacy, and the cold calculus of power, that a king's first duty is not virtue, but the survival and prosperity of his people. Chandragupta grew into a commander. Soldiers would follow into fire. Their first campaign was bold and reckless, a direct assault on the walls of Pataliputra itself. The Nanda army, vastly larger and entrenched, crushed them. Chanakya and Chandragupta barely escaped with their lives, forced to flee in disguise through hostile territory. Wandering in defeat, Chanakya overheard a mother scolding her son for burning his fingers. He had dug into the center of his hot rice instead of eating from the cooling edges first. Chanakya realized his own mistake. He had attacked the Nanda Empire's strongest point first, instead of weakening it from the borders inward. This time, Chanakya and Chandragupta took the border kingdoms one by one, cutting off supply lines and turning local chieftains, tightening the circle slowly around the Nanda capital. By the time they reached Pataliputra again, the empire around it had already crumbled. Pataliputra fell, Dhanananda was overthrown, and Chandragupta Maurya was crowned Emperor of Magadha. That night, for the first time in years, Chanakya tied his hair back into its knot. His oath was complete. Under Chanakya's guidance, Chandragupta expanded the new Mauryan Empire across almost the entire Indian subcontinent. When Alexander's former general, Seleucus, invaded from the northwest, Chandragupta's armies met him and won. Seleucus signed a peace treaty and gave his own daughter in marriage as part of the alliance. To protect Chandragupta from poisoning, Chanakya secretly mixed tiny amounts of poison into his food each day, building his immunity drop by drop. One day, the emperor's pregnant queen shared his plate without knowing what it carried, and the poison, harmless to Chandragupta by then, proved fatal to her. Chanakya acted in time to save her unborn child, who grew up bearing a birthmark from that single drop, and was named Bindusara, Spot of Blood. As chief advisor, Chanakya wrote the Arthashastra, a sprawling treatise on statecraft, economics, law, taxation, and warfare, unmatched in detail anywhere in the ancient world. It covered everything from running a treasury to surviving an assassination attempt. Lost for centuries, it was rediscovered by scholars only in 1905. Chanakya also mapped out a theory of interstate relations he called the Mandala, the circle of kings. A neighboring kingdom, he argued, is a natural rival for land and resources. But the kingdom beyond that neighbor is a natural ally, since it shares the same rival. 2,000 years before modern diplomacy coined the phrase, Chanakya had already written down, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend." He left behind hundreds of aphorisms on power, wealth, friendship, and human nature, still quoted today as Chanakya Niti. Before you start any work, he wrote, ask yourself 3 questions. Why am I doing this? What might the results be? And will I succeed? His advice was blunt, practical, and often uncomfortable. Chanakya built a vast network of secret agents, disguised as ascetics, merchants, students, even dancers, reporting back on everything from market prices to plots against the throne. His philosophy of governance was simple. A king who cannot see everywhere will not rule for long. Despite shaping the most powerful empire in India's history, Chanakya reportedly lived in a small hut, refused palaces and personal wealth, and returned unspent funds to the treasury down to the last coin. Power to him was a tool for duty, never a possession. In his later years, Chandragupta himself turned away from the throne, drawn to join asceticism, and eventually abdicated to spend his final years as a monk. With his students' reign complete, Chanakya's long purpose in the palace had ended too. Chanakya withdrew from public life, retreating to a simple hermitage in the forest. According to legend, he chose to end his life there through fasting. In the ascetic tradition, a final act of discipline from a man who had spent his whole life practicing exactly that. 23 centuries later, the Arthashastra is taught in political science and business schools around the world. India's Foreign Service Institute stands on Chanakya Puri, Chanakya's own quarter of New Delhi, and his name has become a byword for strategy itself. Chanakya never wanted to be remembered as a saint. He wanted an empire that endured and a student who could carry it. He got both and left behind a playbook so thorough that more than 2,000 years later, people still turn to it before they play power's oldest game. Chanakya never became king himself. He built one instead, then wrote down everything he knew about power so it would outlast him. 23 centuries later, his book is still required reading for anyone who wants to understand how empires are built and how they fall. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more tales from Kathavana.